Hi all and welcome back to the channel, and I hope you're all doing okay. I'm going to keep this introduction as brief as I can because it could be quite a long video. I don't like boring people, but I wanted to explain a little bit about the blocks under the car which left Lewis and Charles both disqualified, and something Martin Brundle has said, which I think is quite interesting actually, and I quite agree with him. But anyway, we'll get into it right now. Right, so the plank underneath Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes was found to have worn too thin during the United States Grand Prix. Hamilton had finished second behind Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc was also disqualified from sixth for the same offence. The skid blocks on the bottom of each of their cars, which are designed to impose a minimum ground clearance for F1 cars, had worn away, to the point that they were no longer within Formula One regulations. An FIA statement confirming the decision said Mercedes and Ferrari had acknowledged their respective breach was probably a result of the unique combination of the bumpy track and the sprint race schedule that minimised the time to set up and check the car before the race. The statement added, "The stewards note that the onus is on the competitor to ensure that their car is in compliance with the regulations at all times during an event. Both teams have the option to appeal the ruling, but social media posts from their official accounts quickly appeared to suggest that the decisions had been accepted." And this is what Martin Brundle had to say after the race and after the disqualifications. But anyway, Martin said, "The Circuit of the Americas is one of the bumpiest tracks on the calendar, and the Mercedes and Ferrari were visibly running lower to the ground than the Red Bull throughout the weekend. In the high-speed first sector, the cars bounce over the bumps hard and the floor gets a big pounding, which explains the skid block being worn out. With no safety cars in the 19-lap sprint on Saturday and the 56-lap Grand Prix on Sunday, there was no let-up for the cars after Parc Ferme rules come into effect from qualifying on Friday onwards. A minimum thickness of 9mm is accepted due to wear, so Hamilton and Leclerc's cars must have had less than this post-race when they were checked. It was an intriguing and relentless weekend of Formula One in Austin, which provided some intense action at times, but created more questions than answers. There's no doubt that the sprint format event puts the teams under a lot of pressure, and overall we don't get particularly positive feedback from them, with just one practice session before the specification and setup is locked in by Parc Ferme rules, especially at a relatively unknown circuit like Qatar or a bumpy circuit such as COTA and Austin. This leaves them underprepared, which is far from ideal with such complex cars. And there is the first question. Do we want the jeopardy and variability of some teams missing their ultimate pace, or is this wasting the resource and skills of teams and drivers in a not very F1 manner? We had 20% of the field starting the main Sunday race from the pit lane in the form of both Aston Martins and both Haas cars, because they were better breaking out of Parc Ferme and trying for a more competitive race setup. And from Friday afternoon onwards, with 2 qualifying sessions and 2 races to come, some drivers were consigned to a difficult car for the rest of the weekend. This is not ideal or necessary, and while I don't like us to keep messing with the format, we must make some changes for next season and beyond. It's too much of a lottery, which has far-reaching consequences, as we find out several hours after the Sunday Grand Prix." Mercedes brought a final upgrade to for the season, which was as much about direction for next year's car as this year's performance. Lewis Hamilton, however, grasped the positivity, and on a circuit he relishes, he drove the wheels off his car and could even have won the race before being disqualified, that is. Post-race, his car, along with the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc, was found to have too much wear on the plank underneath it. "We've had this system for nearly 3 decades in a successful attempt to control performance and avoiding the need to replace expensive new carbon fibre floors every day. The plank is made out of reinforced resin and not wood, and can often leave yellow stains on the track at corners like Eau Rouge in Spa. When going on board with drivers at higher speeds, You can hear the cars scuffing along the ground, and of course the skid blocks permitted to protect and control the wear to the plank often give off sparks. If they simply raise the car to be cautious, they'd lose so much performance they may as well pack up and go home. After the race, 4 cars were checked, including Verstappen's Red Bull and Norris's McLaren, and both Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were found to have too much wear, for which the only remedy is disqualification. However minimal the indiscretion, there can be no grey area on this. The next big question, however, is that if 50% of the cars tested failed, then shouldn't all the finishers have been checked? The answer must surely be yes. It must be said that the FIA checks pre and post-race are beyond comprehensive. The published list include over 50 separate and detailed checks, mostly on all classified finishers and a few on randomly selected cars. Right, sorry for a few mess-ups in there, but I wanted to try and explain a little bit more about the blocks, because I wasn't 100% sure on what the tolerances were, but it's 9mm, so they've obviously gone beyond that. And obviously something that Martin said, which I think is actually quite important, that over that weekend, a sprint weekend, Parc Ferme on a Friday, right through until the Sunday, where you can't touch the car, and and if you do, you start from the pit lane. It's really quite tough on the teams, especially those that have maybe brought upgrades, and I know Mercedes did. Aston Martin did, which is probably why they broke Parc Ferme, is because they knew that one floor, that the new upgrade floor wasn't delivering the results, because up until Alonso retired, he did have quite a good race from the pit lane. So please, give me your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with Martin? Do you see any improvements coming from something like this? It'd be fascinating to hear your thoughts on this. And I do apologise for the long video, the poor mic quality. I've still got a few problems with my mic setup, so I will be getting on with that as soon as possible. But if you like what I do, please like and subscribe, and press the notification bell to get future warnings of my uploads, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, like I always say. Anyway, until the next time, thanks for listening. Take care.